Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us for Vintage Books Live. I apologize for the delay. I had a few technical things that I had to work out, but we're super excited to be here with everybody tonight. We are going to be talking about the anthology clocks, which, if you look at Elizabeth's little screen, you can see the cover up in the corner there. And we do have copies at the store today because Elizabeth was nice to drop three copies off. And so we've got them out on the shelf already waiting for you. So if you hear tonight's episode and you love the stories, be sure to stop by the store or call us and we can reserve you a copy. So I'm Christy Peterson. I'm one of the bookstore workers at Vintage Books, and we're just going to take an hour or a little bit longer to chat with both Elizabeth, who was the editor, and some of the contributing writers to the anthology clocks. And Elizabeth, we've done this a couple times now, so you kind of know what I'm going to ask you already, but I'm always curious every time you work on a new anthology, what how did it come to be and what was the inspiration for the particular theme? And what did you like? Did you give any creative direction to people at all when you were sort of setting out to accomplish this? And if so, what did you kind of tell them about what you wanted the stories to kind of sound like or feel like?
So actually, Claw Machine informed this a lot. I was super, super shocked that a claw machine, of which I thought was a pretty universal, everyone would come up with the exact same thing, came up with like so many different stories. So I thought, why not pick an object that is also kind of generic, where everyone would also automatically have their own immediate thought. And so I kind of went through a couple different objects and I was writing down objects everywhere I went, where I was like, a water fountain. And I was like, well, I don't know. And then I was like, light. And I was like, well, okay, that's really big. And car, I literally one words objects everywhere. And when I like landed on a clock on the wall, it was actually a dead clock. And I remember coming home and I was just kind of like telling my husband, and within just barely saying like I don't know, I saw a clock, he like gives me a pitch for a story. And I could not have possibly thought of this story. Now, he was way too busy to write it. He wrote for my last one, but I just was like, oh, well, it has to be this, obviously, because that I was in a totally different direction. You were over here. Well, you nailed it. There we go. And so I basically, this is my first time doing like an open submission. And that was really scary because
Oh,
my
fun.
brain was like, oh my gosh, what if I don't get enough? And it's like three people and I know all of them and they're like, okay. And I'm like, oh, thanks, guys. I guess I'm publishing okay stories or not. And then I have to like reject people I like. So I decided to do blind submissions, which felt risky because I knew some people that were going to submit, but I still did blind submissions and that was complicated, but it ended up that actually people that I did really love, their work came out above the others, which was crazy. I got um at the end I had about 80 submissions
Oh my goodness.
and I weeded out 50 like immediately. Like I just was like, nope, nope, nope. Because the only thing that I said, basically, I was like, it needs to be speculative and or dark and be interesting. I was like, I don't know, did the clock do it all along? I don't know. Like,
Yeah.
is the clock how the story is told? Are you telling the story by the clock? Is the clock the focus of the story? I don't know. So I gave like seven different ideas. None of those ideas were anywhere close to what people delivered, which was amazing. Though I did get some stories where I feel like people just wanted to see if it would work. A story about a werewolf, there were no clocks. So I started control Fing for clock. At us like after like the third submission that had no clocks. Luckily, there were only like 10 submissions that had no clocks in them, which was wild. But for the most part, I was just really blown away. There were maybe two stories that felt like, oh, okay, you guys kind of hive mind this. I mean, but they were in totally different locations in the world when I looked at their bios. And I put yes, no, and maybe before I looked at anyone's bio. Um, and so I let the stories inform the shape. I didn't know what to expect. I ended up with something that has a little bit of steampunk, a little bit of realistic crime fiction, some old world kind of like drama. We've got queer rep, disability rep. I don't know. It feels kind of like Claw Machine in the way that if you list out the synopsis of all the stories, it's like, that doesn't sound cohesive, but yet somehow it flows really well. They're just really, really talented. So I was really, really lucky that so many really exceptional people sent me stories. And yeah, but they shaped it. I handed a thought and asked really interesting people to do what they do instead of being narrow, because that has so far been the way that I have gotten the most interesting stories is just say, I don't know, your brain is not my brain. I don't want to
Yeah,
tell you what to do. So go forth.
yeah. And honestly, I haven't gotten a chance to read this one yet, obviously, because it just popped into the store. But I have read Claw Machine, and I have to say, first of all, note to myself to get more copies of Claw Machine because I think we're out. But also that, yeah, that amazed me that so because they are really different and completely crazy, and some of them are so super touching, and some of them are just like very disturbing. And who would have thought that all of those ideas come out from just one theme? So I'm really excited about this one. And so we're just going to go around tonight and we're going to talk to each of the contributors that were able to be here. And the question I have for all of them is really just the same boring question because honestly, it gives me the most interesting answers is when you either, saw the prompt start, so, saw the fact that you could submit a story for this particular anthology and this particular theme, like how did you start thinking about it? Well, maybe talk a little bit about, I guess, your process of thinking about what could this be? What could this story be? Did it come like immediately, or did you kind of have to think about it for a while? And then maybe share a little bit about what your story is about without any spoilers. And then if you would like to read, go ahead and read a few minutes from your stories. So I'm actually going to start with Maddie, who I don't know has jumped around on my screen since I changed the size, but Maddie is from the East Coast, so it's very late there. So we are going to let her go first, so that she can go to bed probably. So go ahead, Maddie.
Thank you so much, and thank you for having us, and thank you, Elizabeth, for this insight into the editorial process. That was really fun, and thank you everyone for being here. So yes, I think I was mainly drawn to the idea of time itself when I wrote my story, and I feel like it just kind of came out fully formed because I don't really remember the ideation process. But yes, I'm a late diagnosed autistic one, and I really wanted to write about myself with this story, which I don't usually do. Usually I just keep some distance because it's kind of scary, but here I just tackled, I guess, issues or feelings that are very personal and close to me. And in this case, it was this idea that I'm kind of always behind everyone else, kind of always struggling to catch my breath and do everything that everyone else seems to be able to do without issues. So in this story, my character just literally experiences time more slowly than the rest of the world. So it costs her her job because she can't keep up, her body because she has various accidents and loses limbs, had to get surgery. It's kind of this, obviously, I leaned into the steampunk aesthetic with the gears and the clockwork. So there are all these cool prosthetics that she has. And it also cost her her passion because she loves to dance, but she can't keep time. So she has to give up on that. And then in this story, she eventually goes to a clockmaker, asks him to fix her. So they try some kind of speculative surgery. And so, yes, that's kind of segued into what I'm going to be reading right now. And yes, in this world, there are also these godlike deities that kind of act through people. So there are a couple of references to a character called the Mechanist. So that's one of them. So the clockmaker is the Mechanist's patron. And yes, my story is The Wind-Up Heart. So I'll just jump right in. This is a few pages after the start, actually. A chime announced Mallory's arrival when she entered the clockmaker's downtown workshop. The inside was a disorienting jumble of pocket watches, grandfather clocks, cuckoo clocks, music boxes, and orreries. The continuous tick-tick-ticking set her on edge as she made her way towards the counter, studying the glass displays and rows of automata stilled mid-movement. No sign of the clockmaker. Mallory rang the call bell, then wound up a music box sitting on the counter. The porcelain ballerina slowly spun in place, her body arched in a perfect arabesque, while the cylinder plucked a waltz from the steel comb. For a moment, she pictured herself in the figurine's place, dancing en pointe in a gauzy tutu, one with the bright, airy notes rising from the music box. A cacophony of chimes, bells, and hoots. Cuckoos and soldiers came to life as every timepiece in the workshop struck 11 o'clock at the exact same moment. Mallory checked her wristwatch to see the hour hand slide over to the 11 engraved on the dial a split second later. "Thank you for your patience," said the clockmaker as he appeared behind the counter, his bulbous nose squeezed between an impressive mustache and a pair of tiny glasses. "What can I do for you?" Mallory's conversation with the prosthetist had given her an idea. A new prosthesis obviously wouldn't fix her, but the mechanist wasn't only concerned with external components, was he? And who better understood the anatomy of time than a clockmaker? She had every intention of not sounding like a complete lunatic, but the instant she opened her mouth, she started bawling. The clockmaker handed her his handkerchief, then ushered her into an armchair and served her a cup of over-steeped tea and a plate of crumbly cookies. Between sniffles and hiccups, she explained her situation. How she'd always been late, always been so damn slow, perhaps a minute flag, but one that incrementally widened over time to throw her completely off rhythm. Now she was so out of sync, she had no hope of ever catching up, and the world refused to slow down for her. The clockmaker listened attentively, smoothing his mustache with 2 fingers. When she was done, he fetched an ear trumpet and listened to her heartbeat while staring at his pocket watch and counting under his breath. After a moment, he flipped the pocket watch closed and returned the ear trumpet to its drawer. "I do seem to detect a little lag. It would be an easy enough fix if you were a clock, but please, if there's anything at all you can do." I cannot overstate how risky this would be. Even with the mechanist's guidance, we're talking about a highly experimental procedure here. But the idea, mad as it was, had clearly caught the attention of the clockmaker's patron. Even as he said this, he was already sketching diagrams on a notepad, a clockwork mechanism nestled between the chambers of her heart with a wind-up key she could crank up as needed. "Do it," Mallory said, "please." He flipped over the "Come in, we're open" sign in the window of his workshop, then set himself to work. He twisted lengths of metal ribbon with needle nose pliers, interlocked ratchets and springs and clockwork gears like puzzle pieces, let her choose the wind-up key she wanted from an assortment. She chose a small, ornate brass key to match her prosthetics. His hands were deft and soft, she noticed, belying his old age. In less than an hour, he had finished his contraption, a clockwork motor attached to a delicate cage that would sit around her heart and boost its rhythm with just a few twists of the wind-up key. "Still want to do this?" the clockmaker asked. For the moment, at least, our heart didn't need any clockwork contraption to race against her breastbone, but the alternative was a life that unfurled too slowly, spent watching everyone and everything pass her by. "Yes," Mallory said. Thank you.
I have to do it at least once every interview because do you were you inspired by any particular like steampunk, or is that something that you read a lot? I'm just curious. I love the idea of the clockwork around the heart. That's really cool.
Uh, I it's not really something I read a lot. I think probably I was
Yeah.
thinking of Arcane, the animated series that
Oh
kind of
yeah. Yeah.
informed the visuals of this. But yes, I don't know. So I
It
just
just
got
popped
this
into
image
my
of,
head.
yeah,
Yeah.
basically.
That's okay. All right. I'm just going to jump over on my screen to Courtney. If you would like to go next, that would be lovely.
Okay. Hello. Thank you for having me. Thank you, Elizabeth, for putting out the call. Um, my story is a story of a writer who keeps running out of time to write, basically. Um, and her husband attempts to help her, and it goes a bit awry. It is called Time Together. When Kayla glanced over to see how long it had been, the clock said only 10 minutes had passed. That couldn't be right. The battery must be running low again. Another distraction. The batteries were in the kitchen miscellaneous drawer. She pushed the pile of rubber bands, takeout menus, and random markers out of the way. They really should buy some rechargeables. Everyone did nowadays. She pulled out 2 AA's, then went to take the clock off the wall. Once the clock was fixed, Kayla went back to her desk. She sat there, tap, tap, tapping away and sipping coffee, but the words still wouldn't come. She wanted to have something written before Rob got home. She felt like she needed to. She couldn't keep telling him she was a writer if she never had anything to show for it. This was her dream, and she didn't want to give up on it, even if it took away from their time together. The clock had barely moved. 1 minute, two. She threw down her pen and headed for the backyard. Maybe a little gardening would help get her brain in gear. The sliding door was stuck. Kayla yanked and it flew open, slamming into the frame so hard it bounced. What the fuck? The door didn't look broken, but it had jumped out of its track. She managed to lift it in roughly. When she shut the door, she slid it slowly and carefully. Did people oil doors? She'd have to check with Rob when he got home. The door fixed, she proceeded to the shed. She lifted the terracotta pot full of cherry tomatoes, a special variety Rob was convinced would help with indigestion, and grabbed the key from underneath. The lock on the shed was rusty. It resisted the twisting key. She wrenched it hard to the left. It clanged open, the echo reverberating across the yard, louder than the bird song. Kayla turned at the echo, expecting to see a handful of startled birds darting into the sky. Instead, two were circling each other, moving gracefully upwards, away from the bird bath, their measured dance, a kind of airborne ballet. She wished she had her phone to take a picture. The shed door had always been a pain, so she opened it gingerly. Warm sunlight bathed the interior, the bags of fertilizer and compost, the wheelbarrow, the old push mower. She grabbed her gloves, the pruning shears, and a half full bag of lawn waste and pulled them out into the yard. It was quiet. She didn't hear the rustle of leaves or the buzz of insects. Even the sounds of birds and cars were faint. The quiet would be good, bound to get those creative juices flowing. There were weeds to be pulled, roses and hedges to be pruned, and the mint that Rob said was good for being calm and mindful was threatening to take over the herb garden. More than enough work to let her mind wander a while. When the roses were done, Kayla stood to stretch. She arched her back and felt her shoulders and spine pop into place. She glanced towards the hummingbird feeder. Hovering in midair was one of the green ones with the ruby throats, her favorite. She smiled, watching it take a drink. Except it wasn't. The hummingbird hung there like a marionette dangling on a string. Kayla could see its wings move. Not the normal buzzing blur, not the vague suggestion that there were wings there. She could see each wing flapping away. The bird turned its head and looked at her. Slowly, purposefully. No sudden jerk from one position to the next. What the fuck is going on? Her heart was racing as fast as a hummingbird's wings usually beat. The hummingbird darted away, except it didn't. It flew, smooth and stately as any other bird. No jerks, no sudden movements, no skipped frames. Her mind turned back to the bird.
I love that aspect of anthologies is, what we talked about at the beginning about how they all seem to live together in a way that is really interesting. And both of you have themes of people being sort of out of sync with them, with the rest of the world, but to totally different effects, which I love. And I think that's so fun whenever I'm um talking to, different anthology authors, is that a lot of times there are similar themes that will pop out, but every story is completely and utterly different. So I'm gonna pop up to Katherine. If you would like to go next, that would be great.
Sure thing. So my story is called Gearheart, and it really, you could say it was maybe many, many years in the making because the original seed of inspiration was from when I was back in college. I studied the German writer E.T.A. Hoffmann, who's really well known for writing The Nutcracker and the Mouse King. But we studied a story by him called The Sandman, which creeped me out. It was just, I got a little obsessed. It was just so eerie to me. And it has this lifelike automaton, this mechanical person in it, passing as a real person. And so that just always interested me, and I really wanted to write my own automaton story. So fast forward all these many years later, and I was thinking that I read a lot about my dad's side of the family, my Ecuadorian heritage. But my mom is half German, and I thought, well, I kind of want to honor some of that literary tradition too. And I thought of E.T.A. Hoffmann and thought, okay, I'm going to write an automaton story, and decided I kind of wanted to layer on this idea of a female mad scientist. So I kind of meshed those two ideas together, and now I'll read you the start of it, the result, Gearheart. Like clockwork, only better, Dr. Madeline Vale thought. Her hands trembled over the gears and springs, representing the months, years she'd lost count, toiling over her dusty basement countertop. Trinket, she'd call him. Making cuckoo clocks was one thing, but designing and constructing a human-like automaton presented entirely different challenges and echelons of fulfillment. She'd pursued this quest upon inheriting her parents' house and closing her clock shop in town. So what if rats scuttled across the basement floor? So what if bread molded on the kitchen table? With Trinket finally complete, she could wind him up at last. She set paper and pen nearby to record the momentous details. She scooted her stool out of the way and cleared the potted plants from their shelves, just in case. Although the leaves had wilted, the vase's symmetry pleased her. She shooed the rats into the room's cobwebbed corners. Finally, she gripped the key on Trinket's back, gulped, and turned it. Nothing. His hands didn't so much as tremble. Still more work to be done. Temper panged deep inside her chest, like gears trying to grind. She sucked in a breath to control it. Maintain rationality above all. She rubbed her forehead, folded her arms on the countertop, and let her head sink onto them. A little more work, that was all. 5 weeks later, Trinket's arms swung too high when he walked. That could be fixed another time. For now, she watched him barrel into a shelf, metal hands knocking the contents off, denting and cracking the wood as he tried to move forward. Springs and pinions rolled beneath his feet. If a few supplies got squashed, oh well. He functioned at last, after just over a month of adjustments and false starts. He brought new meaning to the clockmaker's term movement, no longer merely the internal gears and mechanisms of a clockwork, but now the embodiment of lifelike advancement. Upstairs, her cuckoo clocks chimed midnight in a distant chorus, as though celebrating her success. She loved it, such precision, such reliability. Why didn't she bring them to town to sell? Ever since holing up in this house to construct Trinket, she hadn't sold a single clock and had done precious few repairs. No matter, she could subsist on her inheritance a while longer, if it meant bringing her dream to life. This new success with Trinket warranted an announcement, a rare foray into civilization, if that was what she could call the foothill town below. After Trinket wound down, she crept upstairs to bed, where she tossed and turned and chewed her nails. The thought of making a trip into town overwhelmed her worse than that month-long setback with Trinket. But an announcement was the rational thing to do, yes. How did scientists share their successes? She'd try the post office, but write to whom? She thought of her desk downstairs with the crooked drawer that never closed quite right, the letters she'd written to scientists and professors she admired, piled up inside it after returning unanswered, unbidden. She gnawed at a thumbnail and inhaled to calm those grinding gears. She considered a different approach, using the town's own social systems to her advantage. Word of mouth. She needed to find the right audience, a little precision out there among her fellow humans, or perhaps reliability. Maybe, just maybe, both. I'll leave off there.
Thank you. I was trying to think of a question to ask, but honestly, I don't think I could ask anything that wouldn't give something away. So I will just not, because I'm really interested to see what happens. I have ideas. So now I have to read it to find out what happens to the ideas. But thank you so much for sharing. Elizabeth, would you like to go next? I'm sorry.
As in this, I did
Yeah,
not write
yeah. I apologize. I wasn't sure how to spell it or say your last name, and I didn't want to mangle it. So,
Oh no, it's okay. It's Jafari.
okay.
Well, first, thank you to the other Elizabeth, so much for putting this anthology together and just the opportunity to submit something and be a part of this whole process. I was originally asked to make an illustration for the book, and I was given a prompt, just like everyone else, the same prompt, or I think somewhat similar. And I started off by thinking about what does time mean for me, and like I see it as something that is a source of truth. It is a confining um, kind of limiting factor, and I I was thinking about just timelessness, and then my mind immediately went to like Art Nouveau and just the idea of like these beautiful images. And then I don't know, just all of it was cooking together in my brain. And I do love steampunk. It's a fun it's a fun genre. So when I was making who you see on the cover of the book, I was thinking about just the idea of beauty, timeless beauty, and the way that we try and keep youth and beauty, and that we're stuck in time, and especially for women and all who identify as women, we're very much stuck and bound by time. And I thought having the clocks all around the woman and kind of the modifications that have been made was maybe a nice way to represent it. And then I panicked and I drew this picture, and then I had realized there was one part of the prompt that said no sci-fi in the sense of like space kind of opera type thing. And I was like, wait, steampunk's sci-fi, right? So I was panicking, and then I made a second option. And I do this often with any sort of commission that I am asked for. I especially when the prompt is open-ended, so I just want to give option one and option two. And so I started thinking about just a one-page comic, and in the same vein of time being a limiting factor, I was thinking about all of the like unsolved mysteries that I've listened to, and the idea of we have such limited information of what might have occurred, and then who gets to tell that person's story. And then when you're reading through the comic, somebody else is narrating what's happening, but what's happening may not exactly match what the person is saying or what the witness had seen of this person. And so it begins with a certain time, 333, and it ends with a certain time, 555. And I will leave that up to you to decide on what happened. And that,
Yay.
so
That's
those were
amazing.
the two options I had presented to Elizabeth.
That's amazing. And I love the cover.
Thank
I
you.
noticed it as soon as she brought the books in, and they are so pretty. So thank you. It's wonderful.
Yeah, thank you
Just
so much.
gonna keep zigzagging back. So Rose, if you would like to go next.
Hi everybody. Um, so this is my first piece of published non-academic work. So
Yay!
I really
That's
want to thank,
exciting.
yeah, it is. I really want to thank Elizabeth for that opportunity. And it's been so interesting seeing other friends, work on anthologies with her as an editor. So it feels really cool to be in the club. Um, when I first started, I was going, for sci-fi, and I love science fiction, and I love how time can work with science fiction, and time is a social construct, and wibbly wobbly, timey wimey bullshit. And that was really the direction I intended to go. And instead, the universe just kind of drop kicked me into Nostalgiaville. And I ended up writing a story based on a very, very weird, magical, unexplained event that actually happened to me in my own childhood. And so, yeah, that's kind of where I ended up going with it. And it's not sci-fi. I don't know what genre you would call it. But it's definitely it's just a really kind of beautiful love letter really to my hometown and to my childhood, which was really magical. So I'll go ahead and read a little bit. Once upon a time, in a quiet little town, built in a valley that had once been a waving sea of hazelnut orchards and huckleberry farms, and before that, a lush and rolling meadow nurtured by the rich soil deposits of a prehistoric inland sea, there was a clock. Long before our story begins, when the little town was just a single church and a feed store and a handful of wooden houses, the clock had been carted by slow, patient mules on a wide dirt track down into the valley. It was wrapped in wool and nestled into sweet wood shavings, braced with fresh-cut pine planks to keep each jostling mile from troubling the improbably delicate mechanism buried at the center of its massive brass body. It had taken 4 strong men to load it into the cart in the big city where it was built, and it would take twice as many men to unload it, and 2 weeks and untold yardage of hemp rope to carefully maneuver it up, up, into the newly built brick tower where, in lieu of church bells, it would keep time for the faithful. The clock has faithfully struck every hour, on the hour, between 6 a.m. and midnight, for over a century now. It starts with a soft, lilting chime. Bing, bong, bing, bong. Bing, bong, bing, bong. And then, after a brief pause, a series of single strikes to denote the hour, each one deeper and more resonant than the last, until the final strike, which hangs in the air with an inarguable finality. Bong. 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 You could stand anywhere in town and hear the time of day, and if you were close enough, you could feel it too, reverberating through your collarbones, trickling down your ribs, rumbling in your stomach. Offices all along Main Street flipped over their open signs at the fresh clangor of 9 in the morning. All the schools opened their doors to an exodus of ebullient children as the stroke of 3 hung in the afternoon air. Housewives had dinner on the table by the distant echo of 6 in the evening, and every child in town knew not to stay outdoors past the last stroke of 10. On Sunday mornings, pastors and priests and ministers of all denominations paused their sermons simultaneously to let the clock strike uninterrupted. Inside the big church where the clock lived, stained glass arches in the atrium trembled in a quivering rainbow of light with each brass hour. Our story starts long after the dirt track down into the valley had become a 2-lane highway, but just before the strip malls and car dealerships began to blossom along its length, in that perfect breath of time before small towns become bedroom communities and family farms get swallowed up by big box stores. The town was still very insulated from the world around it. The feed store had become a coffee shop, and the once shiny new church at the center of town had become old and venerable, while a dozen or so new churches had sprung up or split off in the intervening years. There were 2 theaters, a post office, a fire station, and a handful of schools. The surrounding land was mostly still given over to small family farms, with orchards, hops, and vineyards sweeping up into the hillsides. In autumn, city folk made the pilgrimage to visit pumpkin patches and get lost in hay mazes, and tear apart steaming apple cider donuts with their bare hands. In midsummer, they came out to see the rodeo queens parade through town, and to eat elephant ears dripping with Marionberry jam and watch the fireworks. They might stay for a double feature at the drive-in theater if the kids weren't too sleepy, but they always went home at the end of the day. Well, almost always. Sometimes they fell in love. Sometimes they moved in. Bing, bong, bing, bong. Bing bong, bing bong, 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 bong. A very small girl was wedged in amongst stacks of blankets, books, and boxes in the back bench seat of a massive and ancient Plymouth station wagon that had been christened the Whale for its coat of matte gray auto primer. Bare thighs squeaking against turquoise vinyl upholstery and duct tape, legs flopping limply, dried tears streaking her dusty face, she clutched the book in her lap with sweaty fingers and slept and dreamed, exhausted. The drive from the city was only a little over an hour, counting occasional stops to cool the engine, but it had felt like forever. An old metal car becomes an oven with no air conditioning, and the open windows made no difference when the air outside was lung-searing, hazy and bone-dry as it hovered between the fresh asphalt road and the relentless sun of a late August afternoon. It was not an ideal day to move. Who wanted to move anyway? In her dreams, the lions that guarded the big library in the city center wrapped themselves around her, their massive forms closing out the strangeness of everything. "You can stay with us," they growled, and she could feel the words reverberating up through their stone bodies and into her own bones, resonant and deep. "Stay with us and live among the books. No one will ever know where you've gone, and the whole city can be yours forever. You'll never have to go home ever again." Tighter and tighter, they coiled around her, and they became softer and warmer as their stone bodies continued to turn to flesh and blood and muscle and bone and fat and fur, enveloping her, choking her in the heat that radiated up from their thunderous hearts until she awoke, fighting for breath. And that's where we're done.
Thank you. I love that it's very, very evocative language. Like I could picture everything as you're talking about it.
Thank
And the
you.
clock sound too. I was like, oh, I've been around clocks like that. That's so great.
I
So
was
thank you
nervous
so
to do
much.
that part. So
No, it was wonderful. Thank you. Nia, is that the correct pronunciation? I can jump over
You
to you
got
if
it.
you'd like. Oh,
Yes.
yay! I don't usually.
No, 5 stars. So yeah, I had been simmering on the submission call for a while, and then one day I said, you know, it's only a week out. I don't have anything. I'm just gonna maybe think about the next one. And I sat up at I think, 1 or 2 in the morning and said, the clock is a vampire, like that just, I wrote it down so I didn't, forget about it. But the next morning I was like, no, I got it. The clock is a vampire. And I got kind of honed in on a 3 generation relationship of women, and also kind of thinking about the pressure of, you know, um, looking pretty all the time and what that might look like and how that might function in a very dysfunctional family. So I'm going to read an excerpt from Grandmother Clock. Friday, 5:27 p.m., 16 days before Grandmother Clock is packed into a box. My eyes open the second the coffin lid lifts and Grandmother Clock's hungry ticks echo down the hall. "Get up, girl," dear mother shouts over me. "We'll be late." Tonight, I am trying not to be a wretched thing, so I don't remind her that she is the one who shaved time off our getting ready. "Help me," she bellows. "The servants arrive any moment." We walk to Grandmother Clock, and the hands are spinning as fast as my heartbeat. Dear mother's eyes widen with worry. "Come, stupid girl, get moving. The blood I drank last night is already too old." I don't want to feel the sting of her hand again. I open the old bloody drop cloth and unfurl it. I say the words we need for the ritual, then I unsheathe my dagger. I hate this part. I always hesitate, and dear mother always gets irritated. Get on with it, she orders. One stab to the liver, like always, but I am too shallow. Damn you, you horrid creature, dear mother snaps. I stab again, deeper, and hit my target. She growls, Idiot, you'll get the blood on you. I quickly press the tray to her abdomen and catch the blood I haven't yet spilled. The pendulum starts ticking as the blood flows out of dear mother. It ticks so fast that grandmother clock's feet vibrate, rattling heavily on the wooden floor. Quickly, open the pendulum door. I open grandmother clock's wooden pendulum door. The second the door opens, her demon face screams as she swings from the pendulum, shriveled and oozing pus. Her forked scarlet tongue hangs limp between broken, jagged yellow teeth. Her tongue hungrily laps at the air and toward me as I hold the offer tray of crimson liquid. I shove it inside the door, onto the altar inside, and slam the door shut. The pendulum slows. Dear mother looks in the mirror on the opposite wall. I know she is looking for a change that won't come. She pushes me to the ground. What good are you, girl? What good are you that you come from my loins and robbed me, robbed my flesh of its shape, its youth? You scarred and stretched me, and now my skin always remembers you. And you being here, you make my skin remember. The blows land on my back where I cannot block her fists. I needn't worry about my face. She wouldn't dare hit me there. And she dare not draw any blood in here. She does not want grandmother clock to choose when I turn. She doesn't want her to bite me. Not yet. For now, I keep my blood and others will give theirs. Idiot girl. The blows cease. Grandmother clock ticks. Dear mother stomps out of the room. I don't cry because what if I meet someone or if someone that I had my eye on sees me broken? I don't want my face to be a mess for later, just in case. Saturday, 10:13 p.m., 15 days before grandmother clock is packed into a box. We have moved a dozen times over the decades, but dear mother's parties remain the same. The fashion changes, but all the bitter gossip and gatherings are timeless. How I long to sit for a while as girls run their fingers down the silk skirts of their companions and compare where you bought this or that, and who fancies who, and of every little thing that doesn't matter in the slightest. But tonight, dear mother keeps me at her side, away from girls who might have been my companion if she just let me go sit with them instead of all the women she wants around her. Ones that are not as pretty or wealthy, and the ones who had sons that looked sidelong at me. I'm not surprised when one of those inferior women introduces her son Charles, and dear mother says, "This is my Sumaya." Charles is the same as every James or Michael or John that I've met in the past. I can predict the whole night. He will invite me to dance and undoubtedly trot on my feet, all the while the clocks in the manor tick and tick. And as I am trying not to be a wretched thing, I barely touch a canapé as dear mother instructed. I shyly smile at Charles when he offers me a dance. Charles does clomp on my feet. Crowd around us stomps to the beat of the music, and old women at the back of the room shimmy their hips in their wheelchairs and tap their canes to the musician's beat, keeping perfect time with the clocks. Dear mother approaches as the song ends and threatens me with a glare when she catches me watching the old women. She excuses Charles and pulls my arm viciously to the edge of the room. Time grows short. She looks to the old woman in the corner and hisses in my ear, a menacing whisper. I will not be these old broken things. I'd rather be those broken things than the ones doing the breaking. I keep my face soft for the boy on my arm. His arm is warm, and although there is lust in his eyes, he is young and innocent. Oh, Fortuna, that you had to be the one on my arm. I'm no longer innocent, even though I'm just the bait for the hunter. And that's where I'll stop.
Thank you. Now I have to find out what happens. Every time I do one of these interviews, I'm like, okay, I'm getting the book the next day because everybody's read me all these little snippets, and I'm like, I gotta know. What, when you were thinking about like time as a vampire, what did you think about as far as like the aspects of that?
I had to play with whether I wanted just this timeless, vampire, but I didn't like that. And I think I think it was Elizabeth that was mentioning too, just like the pressure on women, like in all of the different little things that you have to do. And I thought, well, maybe blood is the rejuvenation, and in the body, the liver is where we kind of regenerate and cleanse our blood. So that is kind of what I thought, like, they would need that young blood via a vessel to kind of keep her youth. So yeah, it was a great
Yeah.
prompt. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just a really interesting way of thinking about it. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for hosting us and letting me share.
Of course. I'm going to pop up to a Rain, I believe. If you wanted to go next, or we can pop up to Aaron.
Hey, yeah, I'm happy to go. So yeah, thanks Elizabeth for putting this together, and it's so great to see all my fellow writers here. I haven't read anyone else's stories yet. So it's fun to see these little snippets. So my story is actually it's inspired by slash set in the same town as Rose's story because we grew up in the same town. So, surprise if you're reading those two stories thinking that they might be similar location-wise, that is true. So the story came about because I was living in my hometown at the time of writing this, and I was living in a 1905 house. Um, Thinking about all the people who had lived there over the years and all the things in history they would have gone through, and just sort of wondering about them. At the same time, my parents were selling my childhood home that they'd had. I mean, it'd been around forever. This was just a couple years ago that they sold it. So, um, that was kind of in my mind as well about like, and we were the first, like my parents built the house. And so it was like we were the first family to live in this house. And now I'm in this house, living in the house that's in 1905, from 1905. And so I'm just thinking about all these weird time things. The college in the town put together this history, like walking map of downtown, so you could see what each building was over the years. So I kind of had all of that in my head when the prompt of clocks came along. So I wrote a story about two women who live in a 1905 house and find themselves trapped in a time loop that repeats through over the course of a year. They live through a century of time. The world around them, changes every day. It's like several years in the future. By December, they're back in their time. And then January, it starts over again. So they go back to 1905. So they're kind of stuck in this year-long time loop. Not sure how they're going to get out of that. So um, I'll read a couple sections here. It's broken up into different numbered sections, so I'm going to read 4 and 5 today. In the first year of living in the house, we quickly learned to find a newspaper early in the day to orient ourselves. Eventually, we got the general pattern and rhythm of the year down and stopped worrying about what specific day or year it was. Some specific days repeat year after year. We lived through a few July 4ths, Kennedy assassinations, falls of the Berlin Wall. But the timeline is not always repeated exactly. Some years we miss these pivotal days, living only in the days leading up to them or after them. Specific dates don't have any consequence anyway. There's nowhere we're expected to go, no jobs we are missing from, no worries about money. There is always a stash of cash in the various purses and handbags that appear in the closet. We never get sick. If we drink too much, there's no hangover the next day, no consequence for poor choices. Every day, the house is stocked with whatever food, clothes, and entertainment are appropriate for the time. Aside from the hourly chimes of the grandfather clock, the house is quiet throughout January and February. We don't get so much as a radio until early March. After that, the radio changes shape and size several times throughout the spring, at which point a small television suddenly appears. That too will show technological advancements as the days pass. It begins as a small box that picks up one or two channels of staticky black and white images. Eventually, the television set swells, losing its spindly legs on rollers to become a legitimate piece of furniture with a bulky wooden case that takes up a large swath of the floor. Not long after that, the television begins to shrink in depth as it flattens upon the wall by the end of the year, before disappearing entirely every 1st of January. And then there's the issue of the indoor plumbing, the lack of it, rather. It's a cruel joke that we have to shit in an outhouse in the dead of winter, an actual honest to God outhouse, for fuck's sake, in winter, in the cumbersome women's fashion of the 1910s. In the 5 years we've been living this way, we've begun to both crave and fear the annual approach into October and November, when we experience the unavoidable emotional wreckage of visiting the world of our childhoods. One morning in our first October in the house, Billy switches on the television set and cranks the hefty plastic dial to turn up the volume. A cheerful tune peals out from the speakers, and I feel a sudden and intense yearning for my childhood, instantly recognizing a long-forgotten theme song from a show I'd watched as a kid. I remain frozen on the couch, watching the old shows and commercials for toys and breakfast cereal that defined my youth. Then Billy is shaking my shoulder to get my attention. She has keys in her hand and is gesturing for me to get up. She may be talking too, explaining what she wants to do, but my mind is elsewhere, back to when I was 5 or 7 or 10, living a mostly carefree life before life punched me down. Billy takes us on a drive then, in the yellow Ford Escort that appeared in the driveway that morning. We drive out of town on newly paved roads and through rolling country hills. As we approach a small community, I recognize where we are, and my heart begins to race. Your old neighborhood? I want to see her. Billy's voice is tight and choked. I look at her then and see that her cheeks are wet, her eyes red. The small town Billy grew up in is nestled in the foothills of ancient sloping mountains. The road into town approaches from higher elevations before snaking down into the city. From this vantage point, Billy stops the car, idling on the side of the road. There. She points, and because we've done this before, many years in the future, I know where to look. The trees in the yard are smaller, but I know her childhood home from this distance. A small cottage on the edge of town. A younger version of Billy's father stoops to pick up the newspaper from the front lawn. Billy smiles wide, even as she cries. She points the car back to the road, and we drive into town. But Billy's family's home is elusive. Try as we might, we can't find it. The street is missing, she says. It's on the corner of 4th and Maple, but I can't find those roads. What the fuck? We spend most of the day driving around Billy's old neighborhood, back up to the road at the top of the hill and back down again, trying to get close enough for a better look. At one point from the safe vantage of the hilltop, we see Billy and her brother playing in the backyard, her mother raking the fall leaves into a pile for them to jump into. But as soon as we drive within several blocks of the home, we get lost. It's like the intersection doesn't exist, Billy says. Just like everything else that's been happening, this is impossible. But Billy's right. When we try to get closer to the house, it disappears. Probably a safety catch in the Mr. Toad's Wild Ride we're now living. You can't visit your past self. Through the last couple months of that first year, we slid through our childhoods and young adulthoods in a stupor. Together, we visited our previous lives, always at a distance, never close enough to our past selves or people we knew to make any ripples in the universe.
I love that. That is so interesting. What, how did you decide? Okay, you've got an idea. I mean, a lot of these are also ideas that you could easily turn into novels, but you have an idea that spans a big chunk of time and you're putting it into a short story. How did you think about how to structure that so that it worked,
Yeah,
but you could still kind of give it the depth that you wanted to give it?
It was a struggle, to be honest. It was a little bit longer to when I started, and I started with writing little kind of vignettes, which the final version is a little bit of that as well. There's kind of these vignettes of going through the course of a year, sort of several times, so you get the sense of what are things like for them, what are they thinking about when they go through it the first time, and then after it's been several times, what is that like? So and also how to make it not boring of going through the year each like over and over again for the reader. So even if the characters are bored to tears, it's like the reader needs to be like, interested and invested. So I had to kind of like do some cutting to retain, what was enough flavor to keep in the story to make it make sense and but get rid of stuff that was just like now I'm just having fun as a writer just to write this thing that is
Yeah.
cool but it doesn't really need a place in the story. So it definitely took a lot of massaging to get it where it was.
And I'm going to open that question up for everybody because I kind of like what it kind of pokes at a little bit for a short story anthology is that a short story is such an interesting animal because you have to convey the entirety of the story and what often could be much longer into a really short, sort of pithy piece that captures everything that you need to and none of what you don't. And I'm curious if what were the bigger challenges for you for each of your particular approaches to this particular anthology. And if you just want to speak to this was hard, but this is how I overcame it, or this is or I tried something else and maybe it didn't work. I just love, and it can be anybody. You can just kind of pop in and chat. We don't have to go in order or anything.
I can jump in to say I kind of have the opposite problem because I tend to skew really short. And in my case, my first draft was not actually within the target word count range. So I actually had to add. So for me, it
Interesting.
was that
Yeah.
opposite of how can I sit with my character in the scene and try to really bring it to life with additional detail so that they get the sense of that bigger world that lives beyond the margins.
And I
I've
also
never,
should,
oh,
oh, go ahead.
sorry.
Please go ahead.
I was going to say I've never written a short story before, so it was kind of a crash course in figuring out how to structure it. And, not that it came out very structured. I think it's still
Yeah.
very bare boned, but just kind of, figuring out where does it go? When does it end? All of that, like
Yeah.
really, really basic stuff was just kind of all, brand new to me as a writer, not a reader. I love short stories. It's one of my favorite mediums, but yeah, it was really fascinating to tackle that from the other end.
Yeah, I think what I really love about short stories is just of how much is captured and how a good short story makes you want more, but also doesn't feel like there has to be more, like you got everything that you needed within the space of that story, which I think is always really interesting. I wanted to mention, Rain, if you are there, I didn't hear from you earlier. I didn't, if you would like to share, I would love to have you share, but I don't want to skip over you, but I also don't want to but while we're waiting, did anybody else have anything that they had to kind of think about when they were, a story that wanted to be longer or wanted to be shorter, and how do you think about making it fit in that space?
Just from the comic perspective, I'm constrained to one page, and
Yeah.
I really struggled with because I know Elizabeth had also asked me the question of like, is there more? And is there what else happens? And I felt that just to keep in with the speculative theme, the one page was enough. It conveyed what I was, or at least in my opinion, I hope it conveys to others as well. But that we have a beginning, there's a middle, and there's an end. And there's two different stories going on, and that will be up to you to interpret how that is. And that's all part of speculation, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's so great. And go
For
ahead. Yeah.
mine, yeah, for mine, I guess it's a shorter time period for the main part of the story, so that helps in making it a short story. And then there's a bit of a time jump, just because you could keep going, but it would have probably gotten a little bit repetitive, so then it just
Yeah.
jumps
Yeah.
to the next relevant part.
Right. Right. Elizabeth, how do you when you're editing, how do you think about, whether a story is enough or not enough? And, are you sometimes working back and forth with authors to like shorten or lengthen pieces? How do you approach that when you're working on the editing end of it?
Yes, there have been a few stories that I said, yes, this is within the, you know, the submission call, but I think that we could cut back a little bit of this to make it tighter. Which was it feels awkward because it's
Yeah.
like their baby, I don't want to touch someone's baby, but
Yeah.
you know, it was one of those things where I just basically I felt like, okay, this is also my baby. So let's
Yeah.
kind of have like an open and honest conversation as to why I wanted it this way. And ultimately it was like I absolutely loved this story. And there were a few stories where it was like small things and then one where it was a little bit longer, but it was basically like I love this story so much, there's just this one section that's kind of long. So it basically slows your story down. That's to me an exceedingly easy fix if you just let me just chop this section. If we got to kill some darlings, yes, but the story is so good. Please let me kill this darling. Like it's not a real character, it's not even a character. It's just some words. If you let me do it though. Like, oh, please let me do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I feel like the way I approach short stories is at the end of them, I want a novel,
Yeah.
but I know that it isn't one because I know that they've told me all that there is. There might be more, right? There might be another part to this, but that story is complete. All of these stories, I feel like each one of these characters, we can totally follow them in another section of their life. I can find more about the town or the house or the clock or the tincture, right? There's all
Yeah.
like, I want to know about all of these things. However, this moment in time, they've given me exactly what I want, even though I want more at the end. I'm
Yeah.
all like, I
Yeah.
know, but, which I feel like is like
Yeah.
the sign of what it should be. And so anytime there's like a moment where it's like slows down, where I'm like, okay, well, this is interrupting, or if there's a part where I feel like we just went too fast. I've definitely asked for like, hey, can you just like write me two paragraphs here? Because we just
Yeah.
like and it can literally just be, I just want you to describe this room more, just because we went really fast. We just went from
Yeah.
like this is a clock to now we're in the action. And I need us to breathe a little.
Yeah.
And it was just basically pacing. But yeah, I feel like
Yeah.
a perfect short story always feels like there's a novel, but
Yeah. Yeah.
rarely is a short story actually a novel unless you take more moments around it. And
Yeah. Yeah.
there are plenty that can be that, but that's the art in a short story, right? Is
Yeah.
like
That's
constantly the push and pull of like, is this actually a novel, or do I love the characters and the story enough that I want to like stretch it? And if you have to sit down and you have to go, okay, well, like what else could I do? The neighbor could show up and you're just like throwing spaghetti at the wall
yeah.
versus the story is complete
Yeah.
and you're
Yeah.
like, this tight, amazing story is right here. That I feel like
Yeah.
I feel like that's kind of how you know
I
which
feel
one's
like
which, you know?
like an anthology is like the perfect like hors d'oeuvres plate, and each piece is like it's so good that you want more, but you got just the right amount. And yeah, it's what's so much fun is there's all the variety, and they all hang together in really interesting ways. There's really disparate, but again, they all hang together in really interesting ways. So,
I
well,
wrote a
thank
flash
you.
fiction actually.
Oh,
It just
yay.
for this, but I couldn't make it longer without doing that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I was like, oh, I'm not going to do that thing where I either put in a flash fiction when everybody else has a word count, because yuck.
Yeah.
Um, I was like, no, we don't do that. Or like try to make it a thing that it isn't. So it's just like 400 words. That's the story.
Yeah.
Check.
Yeah.
And I feel
Yeah.
like all of these people did that. They gave me the story as it should be. And then it's a
Yeah.
check.
Did everybody get, I took pictures of it earlier, but did everybody get a chance to put their contact information in the chat? And while you guys are making sure of that, I'm gonna look over here at the audience chat. If anybody wants to pop in a question really quick, I would love to have you guys participate in that way. I'm happy to ask the questions if you have any questions of the authors that are here. I'm going to go ahead and talk a little bit about what's coming up at the store to give people a chance to type in something if they want to, but totally fine if you don't. We have one event coming up that I wanted to make sure and let people know about. We have had the opportunity to partner with Science on Tap. And for those of you not in the Portland metro area, it is a science lecture series. And they present in Portland and Vancouver. And when they come to Vancouver, we often get to be the booksellers for the event, which is really fun for us. And they are having an event on July 8th. It's a Wednesday evening from 7 to 8:30. I'm looking at my phone here. It's at the Kagan's Theater, which is a historic theater in downtown Vancouver. And this month, or this event is based on the book Poking the Squid. And it's about basically what animal sex can teach us about biology and all that kind of fun stuff. It is actually a graphic book, like a graphic novel type book, but it's science nonfiction, which is super cool. So we're really excited about being able to be part of that one. We do have books in the store, but if you look Science on Tap and Keegan's Theater, if you do a search, a Google search, that will also come up because you can do where you purchase the book and a ticket for the event at the same time, if that is of interest to anybody who happens to be in the Portland metro area. If you are in Vancouver or in Clark County, I wanted to remind you, as I said in the beginning, we do have copies of clocks in the store. But if you are not in the Portland, Vancouver area or in Clark County, Elizabeth, can you tell us the website or other places where they could get the book? In case they're not, if they're not in Clark County, or if for whatever reason you can't get out of your house or can't get to the store, are there other places that they can get this? Because I know people are probably watching from all over and can't necessarily hop in the car and come to Vintage Books tomorrow. So if there's other places, that would be lovely.
Yes, so it hypothetically is available everywhere according to the internet gods. But bookstory.com/clocks, or you can go to my website, either littlekeypress.com or justanotherelizabeth.com, or hit pause and use this QR code, which is my website. And that makes it
Yay.
very
Thank
easy if you are
you.
on your phone or you just want to screenshot it and do it later because, life is short and you might want
I'm
to just go to
going
bed
to.
right now. And I really support that. I do. Or it might
That is
be like where it
awesome.
is here, which is like exceedingly hot, and you might be starting to sweat and want to just like
Go
go
get
like
an ice cream cone.
take an ice bath, which would
Yeah.
also be very respectable.
And I'm going to be bothering you later so I can steal the QR code idea because I love that. All right. And I don't see any questions that have popped up in the chat, but I do really, really appreciate everybody who came on the YouTube side of it to watch the stream. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. And thanks for being a part of this. Thank you all for agreeing to come on and sharing all your lovely stories. And I'm super excited to see what y'all do next. So thanks a lot.